What the hell happened to The Last of Us multiplayer is really a question that you should be asking. If you're not asking, well, I'm asking it, because this was supposed to release with The Last of Us Part 2, and, well, it didn't. Naughty Dog got really ambitious so that they decided to take The Last of Us Part 2, have it as its own separate game, and then take away the online component to also make that its own separate game. Except it's been quite a few years, and all we've got are 2 concept images. So if you are raising a question of what the hell happened, we're going to go through absolutely everything. So just in case you've been hidden under a rock for the last 10, 11 years, The Last of Us was released within 2013, and even though it was an absolutely amazing game, I didn't get to play it when it was first released. That's because in 2012, there were already some amazing game releases such as Far Cry 3, Black Ops 2, Assassin's Creed 3, Hitman Absolution, and Max Payne 3, all of which took my money. This was a time when I was at school and not really earning anything to go and buy games for myself. And by the time that we did get round to 2013, that was when The Last of Us was released, but I was looking elsewhere. That's with Grand Theft Auto 5, BioShock, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Splinter Cell Blacklist, Call of Duty Ghosts, and Arkham Origins. So all my money went to those games, but luckily I stumbled across the very best YouTube series playthrough here on this platform. It was Chris Smooth going through The Last of Us. It meant that I didn't have to pay any money, and I got to watch one of the most entertaining series ever. And of course, by the end of it, I was addicted to The Last of Us, regretted buying some of those games within the list, and then eventually bought into The Last of Us a bit late, but had my very first playthrough, then went through and bought the remastered when that came out. And of course, we had The Last of Us Part 2, which was released in June 2020, which is crazy to think of. That was 3 years ago. With the success of the gaming series, there eventually became a TV series, which was released in early 2023. I think it was within January. And by the time it got to its 3rd episode, it was already renewed for its 2nd season, which will then take place very similar to The Last of Us Part 2. And because of that, that raised a question. Will there be The Last of Us Part 3? When Neil Druckmann has already stated that Naughty Dog is already open to the idea, although it's not within active development. And since saying all of that, we then got additional leaks which highlighted that it is already within development. The leaks suggest that it's going to be based on a completely new group for a good part of the story. It'll be 5 different scavengers bringing in new characters, and of course will then still be set within the exact same universe, potentially then linking into Ellie's story as another part of the story, but that is still my bit of speculation. It's only because leaks say that we will be following these scavengers for only part of the game, which is kind of similar to the layout that they did within The Last of Us Part 2. So that is pretty much everything that you need to know about the Last of Us universe for this video, except we did miss out the main point, which was the multiplayer component. Well, as previously mentioned, it was supposed to be there with The Last of Us Part 2, so you would be able to select the story mode as well as the online mode. Very similar to what happened within The Last of Us, as in Part 1, because that did have the main story, but you can also go through another game mode called Factions. Factions was really underappreciated because it was amazing. And for those who did end up going through this, knew that when Naughty Dog said that they are going to add multiplayer to The Last of Us Part 2, they were just begging, fingers crossed, praying that it would be similar to Factions. But unfortunately, it was split because eventually Naughty Dog got really ambitious. Their words. Whether that being ambitious with the main storyline of The Last of Us Part 2, or whether it be ambitious with the online component, potentially both. So in 2019, Naughty Dog did say that they will be splitting the story player element and also the multiplayer so that they will both be their very own standalone releases. And then The Last of Us Part 2 released and we heard nothing about online. Not until 2023, where they did still say that they are working on it and they need more time. But this doesn't go well because at the exact moment that this happened, there were reports that the quality within Naughty Dog was starting to lack. It was at this point in which it sounds like they made 2 mistakes. The first mistake is that they started to work on new projects, some being continuations of previous IPs, so it does sound like The Last of Us Part 3 is potentially within development. We also knew about the online component, whatever that will be called, because it hasn't got a name yet. And we also don't know what the gameplay is, but that's also in development. But it's also said that they're working on completely new titles and new IPs. So they've already started to expand, but they did it at a point where most of the world is not doing that well financially. Interest rates have risen, and we can't really go too much in depth with this due to this being a gaming video, but just know that a lot of businesses are cutting back, and Naughty Dog was no different. They had to let go of staff within the QA team, and they also let go of staff within September and October time who were potentially working on this online game mode. So with all of this, it does not go well. It really just doesn't look good right now. We do see this quite a bit within gaming, where these game studios, these game companies, which are phenomenal at doing something in particular, mainly creating single player narratives. They're just absolutely phenomenal. But they see all that money that people are making over on live service or online games, and they want a taste of it. So they try to push in, but of course it never really goes well, because creating a single player game and then creating an online game are two completely different beasts. We've seen this with Rockstar. GTA 5 was amazing, but when they released GTA Online, it was a complete buggy mess. And by the time that they fixed it, we realized that there wasn't any content to go through. It took years for them to revive GTA Online. And then they did the exact same thing with Red Dead Online, except they never revived that. In fact, they stopped supporting it last year because they started to move assets from Red Dead Redemption 2 over to GTA 6. And when I say assets, I don't mean actual in-game assets, but I mean those who are working on Red Dead Online and Red Dead Online content eventually moved over to working on GTA Online. We also saw this with CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk 2077. On the build-up, they said that Cyberpunk 2077 will be a single-player game, but there will be an online standalone within the exact same universe. And of course, by the time Cyberpunk 2077 released, yeah, we don't need to go through that. It was bad. We all know what happened. One of the worst launches within gaming history. And it didn't take long for them to put the online universe on the back burner, which eventually has been confirmed, I think this year, that it was completely cancelled. It's never going to happen, but they're still saying that they're working on a Cyberpunk 2, which really takes it back. 2077 down to 2, it's awful. But of course, this is still a code name, but with this, within future releases, they're trying to add online components to each and every single game. And I honestly don't think this is going to go well either. This is because with a multiplayer component nowadays, it's not just having multiplayer so that you can play off against other players and then do a bit of leveling up like it used to be 10-15 years ago. Companies were relying on releasing map packs where they would charge $10, $15, $20. But nowadays, it's expected that there's going to be battle passes. There's going to be a constant flood of content coming through. That's because these multiplayer games, not only do they need to have solid gameplay mechanics, but they also need a lot of content, which is constantly pushed to the game that complement those mechanics. And it's just a completely different type of game to build compared to when you're used to and your company has the infrastructure for you to push these amazing narrative games. Based on what we know so far, The Last of Us Online, The Last of Us Multiplayer, whatever it may be, is not going to happen anytime soon. We've had no trailers, no real major confirmation, no gameplay. All we have are 2 concept images. And from those 2 concept images, we have a bit of speculation, some saying that it is going to be similar to what we had within Factions, but also others taking this as an idea that this could have potentially been a battle royale game mode, based on it being a bit more open. The Factions game mode back in The Last of Us were these much tighter spaces, with there being a lot of potential cover for you to go for. The Last of Us Factions game mode were based on these much smaller maps, with there being a lot of cover for you to take advantage of. These concept images, not so much. Some also highlighted that when you zoom in and look closely, you can see that there's different rarity and backpacks, different types of weapons, different types of equipment. But also, these are just concepts. It's not the final game. So to say that is still a bit of a stretch in my opinion. With this one, compared to many other games that we talk about on this channel, I'm really not expecting it anytime soon. We have nothing to go on, despite knowing that this game was in development way before The Last of Us Part 2's release, because of course they were going to be there side by side, and yet we have nothing to go off. And that brings us to this situation where there could be a few potential outcomes. Firstly, this game could very well be cancelled. We're seeing that this is a very tricky situation. Naughty Dog have lost quite a few important staff members within QA and also those who were working on this game mode. And as there is no trailers, there is no gameplay, all we do have are the two concepts and also what Naughty Dog have said about it, means that if there was anything to go, it's probably gonna be the experimental game mode that's already lacking staff and there has been no substance of it as of yet. The other option is that they do continue to push on with this, they do continue creating assets, working, and eventually it will be released, but it will be released years from now. We still haven't got any real leaked gameplay footage or any proper announcements, no reveal trailers. Even if it was announced this day, right today at the time of recording this video, it's still going to take a year or two for them to get it out. Yet again, with that previous point, based on them having less staff and Naughty Dog also confirming that QA is being a bit tough right now in their studio, it's likely that we could potentially see further delays with this type of game. It's not unexpected. Hence why I say I still wouldn't expect this for years. The third outcome that I can see happening here is that this becomes a game mode. They continue work on it, very similar to that previous point, but now it becomes something a bit more to do with The Last of Us Part 3. The original plan was for this to release with The Last of Us Part 2, as already previously mentioned. There's nothing really changing that. The only reason that didn't happen was because they got ambitious. But if they continue to work on it, there's nothing stopping them having a complete online game mode ready for them to release alongside The Last of Us Part 3. These still could be two separate games, but they could charge a hefty penny more. That is if the leaks are true about The Last of Us Part 3 being in development, which honestly wouldn't surprise me if it is in development, considering Naughty Dog are of course open to the idea that this would be a follow-up. Another way for them to make more money, create an amazing game, and also PlayStation, they absolutely love Naughty Dog just because of how well their games perform. So even if Naughty Dog weren't open to the idea, I'm sure PlayStation would just be begging them, please, like, you must create this. So my personal opinion is that it's probably in development. But anyway, that's currently what we know about The Last of Us multiplayer. It's not much, but also there's a lot of other things going on around it. All of that having an effect on what this multiplayer game could potentially be or potentially not be. But let us know in the comment section down below. What do you think the outcome will be of this? Is this a game that's most likely going to be cancelled, which is where I'm kind of leading right now? Or is it going to be the other two options where it either does release, although it may take a few years, or will it be something that comes up alongside The Last of Us Part 3? Or potentially one of those other new titles that Naughty Dog are working on. Now, if you do want to get your hopes up for games which are releasing, then I highly recommend clicking this video right here. That video goes through the most anticipated game ever, GTA 6. That trailer is going to be released within just a few weeks, sometime within December, and this is absolutely everything you need to know before then. I hope you enjoy.